Continuing our discussion on 1D tensors, today we will see how PyTorch fits into the Python ecosystem. So in particular, we will look at how to convert PyTorch tensors to numpy arrays, how to convert numpy arrays back to PyTorch tensors, how to convert pandas series to PyTorch tensor, how to convert PyTorch tensors to Python lists, and how to get values out of that. So let's see. So it's not very difficult to convert between these forms, as this is the theme of this lesson. So this enables you to work. This enables PyTorch to fit into the Python ecosystem very well. Since most of these libraries, this is matplotlib, this is scikit-learn, and there are many more libraries, and many of them use numpy arrays. So once you convert them to numpy arrays, or you convert it to Python lists. So here I am talking about PyTorch tensors because we are working with tensors. Then it fits well into other Python ecosystems. Now let's see the different ways of doing that. So first let's see how to convert PyTorch tensor to numpy array. So we have a numpy array here, and the way to create is np.array. So np is numpy, we have exported it as np. So this is a numpy array, and we will see it in our demo code in the Jupyter notebook. So this is a numpy array, and then we can convert this to PyTorch tensor using the function from numpy. So this you have to remember, and you pass here the numpy array, and now it's a torch tensor. You can convert it back to a numpy array using this function numpy. So these two are important functions when we are working with PyTorch tensors and numpy arrays. So here, although we have these three variables all having same data stored underneath, so these are kind of referring to each other. So initially we had this np array, which was a numpy array, then we converted it to torch tensor, and then we converted it to np array, again numpy array. So if we change, let's say, this np array to some value in this np array 2, let's say we make this 3 to be 100, then it will be reflected in torch tensor and np array also. So this is referring to this, and torch tensor is referring to np array 2. So changes in one part is reflected in other parts, and we will see an example of this in our demo code at the end of this lesson. Next, here we had converted between numpy array and PyTorch tensors. Next, let's say we have a pandas series. So we have to import pandas. We have a series pd.series. So it's 0 at 0 index it's 1, at 1 it's 2.5, then we have 4. So this is a pandas series. At 3 we have 4. So we can convert it to PyTorch tensor. So first, if you just call values on it, it will return you a numpy array, and then again our familiar function from numpy we can use to convert it to PyTorch tensor. And next, let's say we want to work with plain Python lists instead of PyTorch tensors, then we can do that also. So if we want to convert it to Python list, we have to use this toList function. So this is a PyTorch tensor as usual. You just need to call toList, and we will also see example of this. And finally, let's see how to access individual values from tensors. So individual elements in the tensor are themselves tensors. So if you this is 0 based indexing, so 0 1 2 3 4. So if you call x1, it's referring to this 20. But if you print it, it will itself be a tensor. So it will be like tensor 20. Similarly, this will be tensor 30. So if you want to work with values rather than tensors, so you need to call this item method on this tensor. So now it will return you the value 20 and value 30. Now let's see some working example in action. So we have to import torch, numpy and pandas since we will be using it in this exercise. So we have a numpy array. So it's a numpy array. Next we will convert it to PyTorch tensor. Now you see it said PyTorch tensor. So we have converted it to PyTorch tensor. Next we want to convert PyTorch tensor to numpy array the other way. So let's call it np arr2, and we want to convert this using this numpy method, and then we print this. Now it's converted back to numpy array. Now let's see how these are related. So let's change this np arr2. So what we will do, np arr2, and let's make the third value equal to -100. And what we will do, so we will print all these three. So you can see that this -100 is reflected in all of these three. So you must understand that when we are converting from one form to other, these are the underlying storage remains the same, and you can see it here. Next let's work with pandas. So we have already imported pandas here. So we create a pandas series. Let's call it pd series. And finally we will print these pd series and torch tensor 2. So you see this was the pd series, pandas series, and now we have a PyTorch tensor here, and its type is float since we had added some floating points. Next we will convert a PyTorch tensor to Python list. and you can see the difference. Now we will access values from a tensor. So let's use this example. It's already there in the scope, you don't need to redefine it. I'm just defining it to separate the sections. You can still access x here, since you saw that we imported it in the beginning and we are able to access it later. So what we will do, we will print x1, we will print x2, and as expected these are themselves PyTorch tensors. So these are not values. At 1 there is 2, at 2 there is 3, or let them make them 10, 20. So if we want to work with values instead of tensors, what we can do? Dot item method, and similarly for x2, and now we have the actual values. So we will continue our discussion on 1D tensors. We will look at indexing and slicing in some detail. So let's stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching.